And I am really looking forward to the discussion that we're going to have tonight. But I don't want to waste any time. I want to bring in my guest. Brandon, how you doing?
I'm doing well.
Good. Thanks so much for being here. I want to take a minute and just tell people a little bit about you. I think there might be two people out there that don't know who you are. So, folks, Brandon Tatum is a former Arizona cop in Tucson. And you know how I feel about cops, and that's the reason why he's on tonight. Choir practice is built for cops. He's the founder of TatumReport.com, and he's also CEO of 3 different companies. So for those of you who are meeting him for the first time, you're going to find what I have found, that Brandon is one of the most prolific speakers and personalities out there on social media. But he's also spoken in front of huge audiences all around the country. I was blown away. You had one Facebook video alone that like blew the numbers apart. 70 million views.
Yeah, way back when I first started, and it wasn't intentional. I just made a video and people loved what I had to say, and it went mega viral, and it really changed my life, to be honest.
Yeah, I would think so. Were you still a cop at the time?
Yes, I was still a police officer in 2017. Yeah.
Isn't that awesome when it just became that your influence would be greater doing other things than a profession that we both loved?
Right. It was incredible to see that, you know, God had something bigger for me, and you know, no knock on policing, because I loved every minute of, you know, the job that I did. I'm not going to say every minute of it, but, you know, I love the majority of it. I hated the paperwork. I hated all of, you know, the social justice stuff. The LGBTQ stuff we had to watch, mandatory, but we didn't have to do mandatory training, which is interesting. But I didn't like some of those things. But overall, I mean, saving people's lives, going code 3, you know, decoying with the K9 unit, all that stuff was incredible. I miss it, man. I wish I can go back now and do a couple shifts.
You know, I think especially the younger cops, they have to do it a lot different than we got to. I mean, I remember driving code 3 and trying to balance my Diet Dr. Pepper with one hand while I'm going. And back in those days, you know, sometimes your microphone would get wrapped around the steering wheel because you'd have it in your hand and start turning the wheel. I don't know. What do you remember any of your wackiest police chases that you were on? What would have been the wackiest chase you were on?
I can say I was on one high-speed chase, which I was in FTO phase 3. And we were done for the day. We were getting ready to, we were in debriefing. We were getting ready to go home. And a man who had robbed stole a car at knife point, taken off the Joker. For some reason, he decided to drive in front of the police station. So he decided to drive in front of the police station. My FTO said, get in the car. He was driving. I was in the passenger seat. And we took off, man. We were 9th in line. Like, you know, it was 8 other cars in front of us. And, you know, we're only supposed to pursue with only 2 cars. So we breaking protocol. We're at the very back of the line. And I'm thinking we're never going to get involved in this. Like, they're going to get the guy. We're going to be doing paperwork. However, they went to the frontage. We went on the freeway. And our policy is that every stoplight, we have to come to a complete stop. Now, of course, the bad guy doesn't. He blowing 80 miles per hour through red lights. Everybody stopping. We jumped on a freeway. We ended up passing everybody. He was probably, I don't know, half a mile in front of everybody else. We caught up to the guy, missed the first spike strips, and he ended up crashing, jump out. I was the first one to grab him, pull him out, detain him, and I'll never forget this. I'm on the ground, putting him in handcuffs, and the air unit has got the light shining right on me, man. And I looked up and I'm like, I thought I was like in Men in Black or something. I'm like, oh, I'm not, you know, I'm really doing this, you know. So that was really fun, man. And it was interesting how we ended up getting ready to go home and ended up making the arrest and doing the pit maneuver. We the one did the pit maneuver on the guy. So it was fun.
You know, that's the thing I remember is every single day was a new adventure, and you had to think on your feet. There was no, let's plan out how we're going to do this. I'm going to plan out my presentation, and I'm going to get this in front of the board. I mean, every single day something happened. And if you went on one domestic violence case, you better not think it's going to be the same on the next one you go on.
Yeah, 1,000%. I mean, that's the beauty of the job, is that no day is the same. No call is the same. I mean, even you can have a call to the same residence. It's going to be a different scenario when you show up there. And that's the dynamics of being a police officer. That's what made it so great. And also that's what made it so dangerous, because you can never get complacent. You know, when you go to a call, you got to treat it as being fresh. You got to think this is a concept that they taught us in the academy. And I thought it was wacky at first until I became a cop. But, you know, they told us that you got to be willing to kill everybody that you come in contact with. And I used to think, you know, they going too far, but you do, you know, you never know when the threat is going to present itself. And if you're falling asleep behind the wheel, you know, when the threat presents itself, you're not going to go home, and you can get, you know, your best friend / your partner, you can get them killed. And so you got to be ready to go every day.
You know, I'd been out of FTO about, I don't know, 6 months. And I remember I loved working graveyard shifts. And of course, when you're the new guy, you're on graveyards, whether you like it or not. But then you find out those guys that really like graves, don't you? Like a completely different clientele at that time of night. But I remember I was out in the industrial park, and I backed in next to a railroad grade, and I backed my police car in because I was so tired, and I fell asleep. And it was the only time I ever slept in a patrol car. And you know what happened? A guy pulled up that wanted a suicide by cop, and he shot around through the windshield of my police car. And I want you to know, I have never slept in a car since that day.
That is hilarious. You know, that's the worst case scenario. You know, we used to, you know, we were partner, right? We would sleep. We were 40. We call it 45. We'll meet each other in the cars like this, and then we'll take turns sleeping. Hope to God y'all both don't go to sleep at the same time. But I'll never forget the story that somebody told me about a cop. He went on the top of a parking garage, and he fell asleep up there, and they're calling him on the radio. They hadn't called him on the radio. What happened was a citizen had gone up there and saw him, and they thought he was dead. So they call in, they say, a patrol car so-and-so, the officer's dead. He's not responding. And, you know, if that comes out, they send the world. I mean, they had the helicopter. Everybody's going code 3, and they zoom up there, and he wakes up, and he's like, what happened? You know, imagine yours is worse. You know, you work up to gunshots. I mean, that's got to be the worst feeling in the world. But to wake up with everybody, you know, pursuing and thinking that you're dead behind the wheel and you're just sleeping. I mean, he never lived that down ever.
Well, you don't want them to live it down, because those become the nicknames that you get the rest of your career. And who was your chief at Tucson when you were there?
So when I first started, it was Villasenor, Roberto Villasenor. Right. He was actually involved in the Obama administration, the task force, and then it was Chief Magnus, and he's now involved in the Obama administration. I think they were going to select him to be at the border. I have to say, honestly, I'm not too fond of Chief Magnus. Chief Villasenor was cool. I liked him. He was a decent guy.
I got to know him pretty well through the major cities chiefs of police, which I still attend as part of my day job. And so I get to see the chiefs. In fact, I was mapping out a couple of things that I thought were really fun comparisons between our careers. One was that, well, for me, I sat because of the major city chiefs in a few meetings, one of which President Trump sat in, and then of course I was in meetings with now President Biden when he was vice president, and that was a really intriguing meeting because the sheriff in Los Angeles kind of tuned him up about federal police versus local police, and that was kind of an interesting thing. And I had to tell you as I lead up to this that I had the opportunity to be in the Olympic command for Intel during the 2002 Winter Olympics. And so I got to go to the White House, and I got to go into the Oval Office. But here's now where there's a big difference. And I want you just to share a story about this. I was told not to touch anything when I went in, but you were invited by former President Trump twice to the White House, weren't you? I mean, that's pretty cool.
It was more than that. I was there at least 6 or 7 times, directly invited, probably about 4 times. And it was incredible every time we went there. You know, it was incredible. Our last time that we went, Candace Owens and I had this big 2,000 person march to support police officers. We marched in DC. We actually marched across. They wouldn't let us go on the Black Lives Matter Plaza, but we ended up marching across. And at the very end, we went to the White House, and the president on the balcony, he greeted us. And it's funny because he said, "My friends, Candace Owens and Brandon Tatum," you know, and it was such a cool moment. And if it wasn't for COVID, which was his first response to the public after COVID, after he had gotten COVID, if it wasn't for COVID, we would have been able to be in the White House and probably be able to, you know, sit down and talk to Trump during that time. But it was incredible. He was very welcoming. You know, they treated us like kings and queens when we showed up there, and we didn't just come by ourselves. I mean, every time we went, we brought, you know, at least 400 people with us to celebrate and to do things at the White House.
That is very cool. Folks, I'm talking to Brandon Tatum, and if you haven't been to the Officer Tatum YouTube channel or tatumreport.com, Brandon, you gotta go there, folks. Great stuff. You know what? This may be a surprise to you, but you are actually controversial to some people.
Surprise, surprise.
But the thing that's cool is you're a cop, and you know what? There's an interesting brotherhood amongst cops, isn't there?
Yeah, I mean, it's, you know, forever there's a uniting force of putting your life on the line for perfect strangers, and when you know, get into that, what we call a fraternity, you never leave, man. I was just at the gym, and a police officer here in Phoenix recognized me at the gym, and I shook his hand and gave him a quick conversation. And he was, you know, I was just telling him thank you. And he was like, "Hey, man, we all love the fact that you know, you speak out for us." So anywhere I go and police recognize me, man, it's all love, man. We're a big family. And no matter if, you know, you're retired or you still a police officer, you know, it's all family forever.
Yeah, it really is cool. Let's step back a little bit. You played high school football. You went on and you had 5 years in Arizona. Is that right?
Mm-hmm.
Got to play collegiate. Now that to me, you know, a lot of us played high school football, but that was very cool that you got to go on, and you were considered in the NFL draft, which is such an honor. But then something really interesting happened, and we talk a lot about faith and things of faith on this channel. You talk a lot about that. If I quote you right, it's that God had a different plan for you, and that was police work. But how did a firefighter dad feel about you? Because didn't you try firefighting for a while?
No, I didn't.
Oh, okay.
He wanted me to.
Oh, okay.
You know, my dad, it's funny because my dad's firefighter my whole life. I think he joined the fire department in Fort Worth when he was like 19 years old, which was clearly before he had me. And you know, he was moving up the ranks. You know, I remember seeing my daddy studying. He used to have the headphones on. He would be in the den studying. I mean, hard. My dad worked his way all the way up to battalion chief on Fort Worth, and then he retired and became the chief of the fire department in Waco, Texas. So my dad worked hard, man. But it's funny because my dad was actually, and it meant so much to me. And I think my dad knows this. At my academy of graduation, I was in full uniform. You know, they give us our badge and all this other stuff. And so my dad showed up, and my dad was in full uniform, and we were able to take a picture together, him in his Class A, I was in Class A uniform. And that was a special moment. But we you know, every day we joke with each other. Every day we joke about it. You know, I called him the second responders, you know, and he would, I forget what he would say to me. You know, everybody hate the police, you know, they all love the firefighters. So
that's right.
We used to just go back and forth, you know. And it was a fun time.
Yeah. Okay. This one, we're the Blue Canary.
Yeah.
Use that one on you? Yeah,
he did.
Yeah. So folks, the Blue Canary, in the old days, the miners used to send a canary into the mine to tell them if it was no oxygen in there and if it was dangerous. And the firefighters always said the cops were the Blue Canaries, because we would run in and check a place out while they were still assessing whether it was safe to move inside or not.
Yeah, man. You know, it's so funny because I love firefighters or whatever, but you know, I think people do need to understand that like police officers are legitimately first responders on a lot of these calls. One is because proximity. You know, it's a lot of us out there at the firehouse. We're in the streets, and we normally show up to assess these calls. It was just a fire up the street from my house. A car was on fire. I don't know how that happened. The back of the car was on fire. It wasn't even the engine. And I remember I saw the police officers coming through, and we could see, me and my son could see the smoke coming. And it's like, okay, the police officers are there ready to go. And then the firefighters, you know, they come in afterwards. No offense to them, but, you know, I think police officers are the true first responders.
Yeah. Well, you know, I mean, you think about it, we got the guns and we got the training, and, you know, sadly, I mean, in a lot of cases, people end up dying in hostage situations or sniper situations because the firefighter can't go in. I mean, it's the cop trying to get the thing under control. But interesting thing, you know, you have been on, gosh, I think every major news channel in the country, you on a regular basis, not just an appearance here and there. And I have to echo that cop that you saw in Phoenix at the gym today, that for those of us who have been cops that have rolled in a gutter and fought for their life, it is nice that there's someone, and I got to say someone of color, because you can say things that I can't say in some of the challenges that are going on. I don't have that right of color that you have in that regard. But I just want to thank you, because you haven't walked away from racism and challenges. You just talk pretty bluntly about how to keep from being hurt by cops.
Yeah, it's a simple mathematical equation. You know, you don't commit crimes, you probably will never see a cop. And if you don't resist arrest when a cop catches you, you probably gonna get beat down and killed by a cop. I mean, it's very simple. And I don't understand how we're even having this conversation in 2021 in the greatest country on planet Earth. Like we shouldn't even be having this conversation. George Floyd, not Ahmaud Arbery, but George Floyd, Jacob Blake, I mean, you know, Michael Brown. I mean, you can go down a list of every single one of them, even those who were unjustifiably shot by the police. If you weren't resisting arrest, none of this would ever happen. The police would never even get to that point. And as a former police officer, nobody wants to kill you. Nobody wants to, you know, no cops don't want to kill people and get involved. I don't want to do the paperwork. I don't want to be ridiculed. I don't want to end up, you know, on somebody's investigation. Like, just do what I tell you to do and everything is fine. And when I bust you and catch you, you maybe fight it in court. You may win. I know a lot of people that win in court because of all kinds of different things. So it's very simple, and I don't know why we can't figure it out.
Yeah, it seems like the police officer today and the public's perception is so different than when I was a cop. I mean, there always have been people that dislike law enforcement. It's going to be a natural phenomenon that someone who has to toe the line is going to be disliked at times. But there's a public perception out there about law enforcement right now. This is a really tough time to be a cop in America.
Yeah, and again, it's like the police brutality thing. I don't understand why people are so eager to talk bad about those who protect and serve. I mean, it's an honorable profession, and anybody that's honest with themselves will say, I couldn't do that. I wouldn't do that. You know, before I was a cop, even when I signed up, when I first got invited to, you know, the testing, I was like, I don't know if I want to do that. You know, that's a dangerous job, man. This is real life danger. And now that you see cops getting killed on a day-to-day basis, I mean, it's even more, you know, of a incredible threat. And I saw a video just recently of the reaction that police officers are having to some of these scenarios. It was a black kid pulled a gun on 3 guys who were going to jump him right in front of the police officers. And when they pulled their guns, it was like 5 cops. The guys were still trying to fight him, and he got the gun in his hand, and the cops didn't shoot him. They never shot him. He just literally backed himself up and finally threw the gun down, or put the gun down at his own leisure. You know, thank God the guy didn't crack up and start shooting people. And that's the residual effect of this rhetoric that's pushed against white police officers by and large, because if they would have shot the black man, even though he had a gun, I mean, even when this was going on, they were yelling, Black Lives Matter, Black Lives Matter. And it's like, you know, these things are incredibly ridiculous. And I really wish that the tide would turn when it comes to law enforcement perception in America.
Yeah. Don't you wish we could take every person in America and put them in a patrol car as a ride along on a Friday night on a graveyard shift?
If we did that, the world would be a better place. People would be worshiping at the altar of the law enforcement officer. I mean, I'm just being honest. You know, I'm exaggerating about. I don't need worship from anybody, but you know, I think that it would blow them away. I was blown away on my ride along that I did with Officer Sean Payne, which is he's obviously in my book, and I'm sure we'll mention that later. But Officer Sean Payne was a hero. I did a half a shift with Sean Payne when I was applying for the police department, and I was just blown away at the amount of things he could endure without flinching. I mean, we went from changing a flat tire of an elderly lady, and it's cliche-ish, but it happened. Like, we were changing a flat tire, and I'm like, I can do this. This is not a big deal. While we're there, the tone goes off, and it's a man attempted to commit. It was a kid that's attempted to commit suicide. And then we went code 3, and it's the first time in my life I've driven like that. I mean, I didn't drive. I was just in the passenger seat, and we're going 80 miles per hour. People won't move to the right. I mean, we're dodging people. We're going through the intersection, and I'm about to have a heart attack. And we finally get there, and I'm thinking all these things are flashing through my mind. And he had to brief me like, hey, have you ever seen anybody that has shot themselves? And I'm like, no, I've never. I don't even know if I want to get out the car, but I can't be a punk, you know, so I'm just going to have to get out of the car and see this. They kick the door in, they go in there, and the guy got the knife to his wrist. And I'm just like, and we get back in the car, and I'll never forget this. Before the call, he was asking me about my mom and my dad and like where I grew up at. And then after the call, we get back in the car. He's like, hey, like I was saying about your mom. And I'm like, my heart is about to pump out my chest. And I'm like, brother, I'm still caught up on the drive over here. Like, how are you poised at this point? I'm about to have a heart attack. And I remember asking him, and I said, you know, you do this every day? Like, he go, yeah, I do this every day. And I'm just like, dude, like, you are like a superhero right now. And that's what really inspired me to want to be a cop.
You know, that really is interesting, because it's something that you learn as a cop, isn't it? Is to put things in a bucket, that you don't allow the behavior of one event to dictate how you're going to respond to people on the next event. Right. Just the very fact that you're almost a little schizophrenic, that you can go back and say, now tell me again about your mom. I mean, that is really amazing. I remember having ride-alongs, and as a patrol officer, I dreaded when the sergeant called and said, hey, come to the station, you got a ride-along. Man, in hindsight, what I would have given to have that opportunity today to talk, or to put them into a shoot, don't shoot scenario in the training room, and let them see what goes on in shoot, no shoot kinds of stress.
Yeah, I mean, it's incredible. You know, I was pretty new. You know, I did 6.5 years. So especially the beginning of my career, when I had enough tenure to do ride-alongs, you know, because when you're really new, they don't want nobody riding with you. You know, you get everybody hurt, you know. So, but when you get a little bit of tenure, a little respect in the police department, they pass it down to you. However, you know, I love the opportunity to educate people. I loved it because I felt like now you can see what really go on. You know, now you're gonna go back and tell everybody. And I'll never forget this ride along that I did, which was probably the most, I guess, pivotal ride along I did. Maybe it's ranked number 2. There was a lady, her kid went to the same preschool as my son, and when I dropped my son off, I used to wear a full uniform, and she was like a Black Lives Matter enthusiast, and she was like, you know, what's going on with you and, you know, policing? Like, I'm interested in why you a police officer. I said, hey, look, come do a ride along with me. It don't cost you anything. I'll fill out the form. Come do a ride along, and then you will see if racism and all these different things are true. You'll see it. She was so scared that she wouldn't even get out the car on a traffic stop. I'm in a day shift. Traffic stop. We pull a car over. Broad daylight. She wouldn't even get out with her observer vest and stand by the car. She like, no, I'm not getting out. No, I'm not getting out. I'm like, you know, you couldn't do this job. You won't even get out and observe because you're so terrified. And then we did this one thing that I thought was incredibly important. I wish everybody would do this. During the daytime, I tell her, what race is the person in front of us? What race is the person driving that car? See this red car coming through? What race is that person? She's like, I don't know. I can't see. Of course. Beautiful. So all these people saying that they pulled me over because I'm black and all this other stuff is by and large, it's mythical. that's not the way we address situations. We don't just pull people over because they're black. You know, we pull people over because they're making traffic violations or an investigative stop where their behaviors and everything, the totality of circumstances are suspicious enough for us to have right to do an investigative stop. But other than that, we're not wasting our time trying to pull people over for nothing, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, did you catch the news this yesterday? I think it was, and I think it was out of Seattle. I hope I don't get this wrong for the folks in Seattle, but that the mayor or someone in the city was saying no more. I don't want anybody to do traffic stops on any kind of traffic infraction. So license expired plates, no plate, those kinds of things I don't want. I mean, how many times did you hook up a serious felon because they were driving with bad plates on a vehicle or something?
Yeah, all the time. You know, the philosophy that I live by, and I would judge people's cars, and I would, you know, if you don't take care of your vehicle, it's more than likely you're not going to take care of your registration and all this other stuff. And if you don't have registration and you got, you know, expired plates and all this stuff, there's a good chance that you are probably an illegal, you know, doing things illegal in the first place. Reasonable, responsible adults, typically, they have their stuff together, and it's not 4 months, you know, expired. It's people who do not regard the law typically fall in the category of not regarding the law in other areas of their life. And there's plenty of times that we pull people over because suspended registration, or the person in the car, when we ran the plate, because the plate was expired, the person came back as a person with a warrant. And then you go and do the traffic stop because of the first violation, and you realize this person is the person with the warrant, and you hook them up. And this is real felony, serious warrant. So it all goes together. I don't know. See, people don't know anything about policing, so they think, well, what's you wasting your time with a traffic stop? Man, I've called child molesters. I've called people on traffic stop just doing regular traffic, even with all of their stuff together, doing regular traffic. Me going out, we call it a FI, a field interview.
Field interview.
Just going out and talking to people who are standing in front of, you know, it was a CVS, you know, just talking to people. We catch so many criminals. I would never forget this. A random guy, he's just standing out there. I'm like, man, what is this dude standing in front of CVS? It's closed. It's at night. Everybody's supposed to be asleep. He's standing out there. And I remember it come up on the radio and I didn't hear it because I was talking to him. And this was before I had my earpiece in. And they were like, I think he had a $500,000 warrant for his arrest. And so I'm calling him out, and I just heard warrant for his arrest. And then I hear the tone go off. 12-11-7, are you 10-4? You know, are you okay? And I'm like, 12-11-7. Like, I'm fine. What are you talking about? 12-11-7. He has a warrant for felony warrant, $500,000 bond. And I'm like, and I'm out there by myself with this guy. And I'm like,
it's not the radio blasting at that point, aren't you?
Yeah, I'm trying to turn it down. Like, oh, no, everything good with you, man. You know, because I didn't want to get in the shootout with the guy, but cars are coming code 3, and you know, and we ended up getting him, but he had a $500,000 warrant for a home invasion. I think it involved somebody got killed in a home invasion. He wasn't the murder suspect, but he was involved in that situation. So, you know, it was pretty telling, you know, and those insignificant to other people, those stops, those field interviews, consensual contacts, they lead to so many arrests for high profile criminals.
Yeah, no question. Folks, I'm with Brandon Tatum. Brandon's former police officer, now has this killer YouTube channel. If you're not going to the Officer Tatum channel, you got to get over there and make sure you're subscribing there. And thanks to those who are visiting from Brandon's channel. And thanks to those folks that are putting in some super chats and some other things. Brandon, I was thinking, just as you were mentioning that, I had this flashback, because another thing that you and I had in common was we both got to serve in SWAT. And for those that have served on a SWAT team, there is a special bond between that 5, or at one point we were a 7-member team, but usually we were a 5-member team. We brought in actually 2 canine dogs, and we grew to 9, where we brought a couple of paramedics in and tried to train them as part of it. But I remember one night riding as a brand new tactical officer on the SWAT team. We all had unmarked cars. We had a deal with the local car lot that we would go, and about every 2 weeks we'd change out cars so that we were always driving a different kind of car. And the thing that was so cool is every single call we handled, which were only felonies in progress, every single call, the entire team would respond. So
oh, wow.
So we had codes worked out where we talked about which side we knew from training, which side of the house we were going to take, who was going to hit the front door. We knew who the guys were that were the best at certain tactics. And it was just so cool. But my first night on the job, I'm riding, and the TAC squad sergeant, the SWAT team sergeant, was a tall guy, former Green Beret, Vietnam veteran, and Sergeant Moore. And I mean, he just would stare at you and you'd kind of like crumble. And he had this ability, I could never lie to him. And he'd say, okay, did you do something? And the TAC team would all be kind of looking dumb, and he'd look at me and say, okay, King, did you guys do this? And I was always the guy that gave it up, We're walking down an alley of a man with a gun call, and the guy was going to commit suicide. And we come around the corner, and I look up, and it's, pitch black at night out there. And I see the shape of a guy by a tree. And so I shine my flashlight, and I got my weapon out, and the guy had already hung himself, and he's hanging from this tree. So we run over and, Sergeant Moore was like 6'6" or something, and I picked the guy up from the legs to kind of get the tension off of the rope. And he reaches up and cuts the rope, and the guy drops down to the ground. And this is my faith story for you. The guy laying on the ground, and he's unconscious and not breathing. And the sergeant says, King, give him mouth to mouth. I said, I'm not giving him mouth to mouth. He goes, King, me 3-stripe, stripe.
Yeah.
And so I'm staring at this guy, and just then the guy gasped for air. And Sergeant Moore was always teasing me because I had a lot of I'm a person of faith, and he was always teasing me about that. And I remember standing up, slapping him on the shoulder, my first night on the SWAT team, slapping him on the shoulder and saying, see, the church is true. And I walked off.
Yeah.
We became tight after that. We were best friends, but you didn't mess with Sergeant Moore. But yeah, tell me about SWAT. I mean, how cool is a SWAT assignment, and what was your assignment? I was the explosive ordnance guy. So my job, because I was squatty and kind of a little slower, I got to put the shape charges on the doors or the windows, kind of stay out of the way.
Yeah, so I was only on the SWAT team for about a year, and then the whole political stuff kicked off, and I ended up leaving the police department. So I was a rookie still on the SWAT team. I tell you what, getting on the SWAT team was tremendously difficult. 3 weeks of killing us, and it's funny because I said 3 weeks. I could do 3 weeks. Now it's every day. They smoke you until somebody quit. So it was incredibly challenging. You earned the position on the SWAT team. It was not given to you. Nobody cared. We had a girl do it. Everybody had to do the same thing. The girl had to do every qualification the man had to do, and she was a beast, so she made it on the team. But when you're a rookie on the team, you don't get no good stuff. I thought driving was fun. I drive the team up. We pull up in our little undercover bread trucks, or we had like a minivan that had soccer mom on it, so they had no idea, bro. We would jump out on people, and they would pee their pants in front of us. But I would do the driving, and you had to collect all equipment. One of the coolest things I was able to do is that we had flashbangs, or they call them diversionary devices, but I was able to throw a couple of those, and that was fun, man. Brandon on the 2 side, bang, I forget what they call it, bang out or something like that, and I throw it, and I'm thinking I'm the man, Or we had the BAT, which is this big, armored vehicle that we had that was big as a fire truck. And it was actually on the fire truck platform, but it was a big armored truck. And when you're a rookie, you get to drive it. So, we're driving it for maintenance and stuff. You're driving down the road, just looking out, tacked out, looking out. Everybody's like, what is this? So those were my fun moments. And just the training was fun too, because in training, you get to do everything. So I was a bigger guy. I'm about 6'2". I was about 230 at the time. And I was on the Ram, so the big guy, I was on the Ram. And when you're a rookie, you have to do some time before you can figure out which specialty you want to be involved in. Like, so mine was just the mechanical breaching. I wanted to be a mechanical breacher. And so I was out before we were able to get into our specific areas. Some of my guys that I know, actually, I'm going to Tucson tonight. And some of the guys I know, I'm gonna try to meet up with them. But it was fun, man. It was cool. It was about as cool as people think it is. If you're in the movies and it's really that cool. And you jump out on people, jump out of these vehicles that people have no idea. It was great. It was great.
Yeah, there is no question. It's the best job. So on our SWAT team, that final week was called Hell Week, and you got about 3 or 4 hours of sleep a night. When you made it onto the team, you were called the remote for until the next new guy came on. So the rookie was called the remote, and I never understood what the remote was until the first time we went rappelling. And one of the places we rappel, and if you ever get a chance, look this up. So in Ogden, Utah, there's a place, Ogden Canyon. There's a pipe that strings across the canyon. It's about 360 feet or so above the road. And the remote's job is to go out on the pipe, and your buddy's got you tethered, and you got a single belay, and the belay is sitting, and you're supposed to just fall backwards and trust. And that's when you finally get your stripe that you're on the team, is when when the remote takes the lean back. Okay, so I got here we go. Here's zoom in on that, guys. Back office found the canyon. This is the pipe, Brandon.
Oh my God.
So you have to go out there and drop off. And what you do is you learn trust in the belay.
Yeah. And
you learn trust in your team. And as you well know, I mean, trust on a tactical team is that is a group of people that the rest of your life you have a bond with that you can never break. In fact, I'll text you a picture of me sitting on top of a car that we put about 50 rounds into. That was the trophy car. But so Brandon, I got people begging to see the Trump shirt. So you got to just up a little so they can see the shirt. Got to take care of everyone out there that's asking questions. Thanks. There's another question. They want us to start a weekly show and just talk cop stuff. I don't know that I'd ever get that in your busy schedule, but you definitely got to come back, and we'll keep talking. And we're going to keep talking tonight. But something that I've really been thinking a lot about, and I wonder what your opinion is we have to help law enforcement in this YouTube community, especially those of us who have sat in their chair for a while, to understand that social media is more than just Facebook and Twitter accounts. How do we start evolving? Because this law enforcement is a tough ship to turn.
Yeah, I mean, it is, man. People don't, they said this when I was in the academy, that police don't like change, and when you start coming up with new ideas, there's going to be a level of resistance initially. But I think when people see individuals like you and I who are on here having a voice, creating change, I think more people will be like, you know what, I really want to be a part of that. I really want to do that. And unfortunately, on some police departments, you can't get on social media. They have such strict social media policies that don't allow their police officers to have a voice. And that's kind of why we exist, to give them a voice. But I do encourage anybody that's watching this, law enforcement, and even if you have to be, have a A-list channel that doesn't, depict who you are, so you don't get in trouble by the department, it's good to have your voice out there and to be able to explain and express the things that you want the public to know about law enforcement. Because if the only rhetoric that's out there is just negative, they're out there just killing people. Why don't you shoot them in the hand? Why did you, all of these things that are just bizarre to me. After being a cop, you have to get out there and put that information out there so more and more people will see it. That's what I've done on my channel, and especially when I explain police shootings, people are incredibly shocked because they like, I never thought of that. Well, I never thought of that. And it's like, yeah, because you're not a cop. Like, you've never done this stuff before. You're just looking at CNN or the TV or hearing rumors, and to actually actively be on a patrol on the beat doing stuff, it's a much different than sitting behind, a TV on the couch. So I think that it's important for us to get out there and get our voices known. And if you do have a policy that's conducive, don't be afraid to just get out there and just state your fact, or share some videos that are presented by officers who are telling the truth.
This is really important because we're seeing politicians, especially those who are sitting in mayor or county commission seats, maybe even higher up into governor seats, that are immediately calling for termination of police officers before any due process happens, before anything happens to protect this person who has taken a job for little pay and put their life on the line trying to protect the public. We ought to be able to have equal kinds of outreach. And it's been interesting to watch. Yesterday, I believe it was, the Chicago Police Union put out a vote of no confidence against the mayor. We have mayors who are saying, I want further defunding and I want to have no police officers. We have colleges that are saying we don't want police officers on the campus. This pendulum will swing until people realize, and that's not good for racial tensions or anything else, to allow a pendulum to swing because we're fearful of what police have to do, because it's an ugly job at times.
It's an incredibly ugly job at times. You know, you have to fight people. You may have to bust somebody in the face. It's not pretty. You may have to slam somebody down on the ground during an arm bar. You may have to kill people. Like, it's not a pretty job, but somebody got to do it. And most men and women who sign up with the, you know, and put the uniform on, do it honorably. That's just the way it is. But I'm looking forward to the backlash. Unfortunately, I hate that some citizens are going to have to endure the punishment of the dumb people like Lori Dirtyfoot. I call her Laura Dirtyfoot, Laura Lightfoot. I mean, I don't understand what they want to accomplish. The crime rate in these areas are going up tremendously. Some in 3 digits, triple digit numbers. And to eliminate police is saying F you to the citizens who not only pay taxes with an expectation that they will be safe and protected, but it's you're screwing over the men and women who sign up to protect your very city so that you can have tourism, so that you can have, you know, property value can go up and people can desire to want to live there. Chicago is the last place that needs to defund police. They actually need more police, and they need the National Guard to come there. I made a highlight clip. I had one of my staff members make a highlight clip of kids alone that have been murdered in Chicago. And it's out of control. And you know what? The elite, people with money, they don't care. They don't need the police. You know what I'm saying? In the community I live in, we don't need the police. You come to my house, it's going to be 4th of July, and we don't need the police. The poorer people in the community who live in these communities riddled with crime, riddled with drugs, riddled with despair and educational issues and fatherless homes, they need the cops the most. They are going to suffer.
Yeah, I agree. I've watched this with great interest. The last 2 years, we've seen almost 1 police officer per day die in the line of duty. Now, much of that is COVID, but the International Chiefs of Police president just a few days ago announced that there is a 40% increase on ambushes on police officers. There is now open season in many areas that's a badge of honor somehow to snipe a cop. What are your thoughts there?
Yeah, it's unfortunate this is happening. Clearly, it has been an increase, and one of the reasons is because of rhetoric against police. People begin to hate the police and view the police as their enemy, and when they show up to calls, they want to take a police officer out. And in many cases, many circles, you get, you know, clout for that, and that's unfortunate. And because who's going to want to do this job when they want to defund you? And then after they defunded you, they don't care about whether you live or die. And you have a legit full family that you're taking care of, that you are responsible to. And so what's going to happen here is that police officers are going to be less proactive. There's going to be more criminals running amok. People are not going to sign up, and they're going to have to lower the standards. Therefore, they're not getting the best qualified candidates. And it's going to be a dangerous situation. Now, I will say this is not happening in red states as much. These are not happening in conservative police departments. They are getting all your good officers. They're going to be protected. They're going to get paid. They're going to be doing well. In Florida, DeSantis gave every police officer in the summer, I think, a raise. All the police officers or the police agencies in Florida. And so they're going to do fine. These leftist liberal cities are going to suffer dire consequences. And the police officers that are there are going to be less likely to do anything. And when you have a city like that and you have morale that have tanked on a police department, beware, because these cities are going to die slow. And not only with crime, but that it comes with property value. It comes with tourism.
You're
Do
right.
people want to live there? Are people going to shop there? The price of goods are going to go up because they're not going to be able to deliver in these places. They're high risk. You know, all of these things are going to happen. And all I would say is that that's what you get. That's at the end of the day. That's what y'all get. Vote different.
You know, I want to just shout out to the back office and say, hey, if you see a couple of questions that ought to come up, please pop them up on the screen. Brandon will watch for those and see if there are a couple we can answer. But I want to talk a little bit about recruiting strategies, because I have as long as I can remember, police departments have averaged about 10% of understaffing or below what their sworn capacity is. I'm hearing those numbers are now doubling and tripling because officers are taking their minimum retirement and they're getting out of the job. I'm hearing complaints from all of the different people of color across the country that we don't have equal representation. How do we recruit the African American or the Asian officer or the Hispanic officer, and what do you think would get them motivated? Because there are people out there saying they can't get jobs, and yet police departments can't get people.
Yeah, I think that's an incredible question. I mean, a lot of this falls on the community. I mean, police can only do so much. They can only pass out so many pamphlets. They can only pander to you so much. But the people in the community are going to have to step up and say, you know what, I want to be a part of the change that I want to see in my community. If you think the police officers aren't doing a good job, become a police officer. Put down your protest signs, put down your Black Lives Matter stuff, and you put your behind in that uniform and you protect your community. Therefore, you will ensure that people aren't being treated unjustly, that there's no racism in your community. You have the right to do that. I put on the uniform and I made sure that I treated people with respect. I showed people the love of Christ. I never said a curse word a day on the police department. That was my decision because I felt God wanted me to do something a little different, and I never got a complaint. So, I mean, you know, I got a few, but they were never formal because these people, 3 people filed a complaint on me, they all lied. So, however, you can be a part of the change if you think the police department is a certain way. However, the problem is not the recruiting. It's that people are too cowardice to actually do the job. Therefore, they make all of these excuses in the world of why they didn't want to become a police officer. And Chief Brown, he used to be the Dallas chief, and I think he's like the commissioner of Chicago.
David Brown, yeah.
David Brown. And I used to love, I didn't like everything he did, but I used to love because he used to fire police officers that were acting up, and he used to tweet about it. I fired so-and-so today because they lacked integrity and whatever. I used to love it. Come out against the ones who were bad. He stood up for his police officers who were doing good. And he told the protesters back when I forget, was Michael Brown or something. I can't remember which one of these criminals got killed, but he came out and said, put down the protest signs, come down to the police station. I will put you in your community to patrol. I will get you on. We'll put you in your community. And what do? They don't sign up because they don't have the heart. They just want to be activists.
You know, Chief Brown actually sided with the union in calling out that mayor in Chicago. Brand new chief and having the guts to do that. That's pretty impressive. So there's a question here from Travis Chagoya. He's saying, hey, what are your thoughts on, we're talking Chauvin, the Minneapolis 7, George Floyd, $7 million. I'm sorry. No, they're asking about the $7 million budget cut. You can see where my mind is. $7 million defund for police when crime's up 75%.
I think it's stupid. What you gonna do with $7 million? Build a recreation center? I just don't understand why people cannot be genuine and realistic. $7 million cut from the police department. What are you gonna do with the money? What are you gonna do with the money? If you build a facility there for recreation and there's no cops, and you have not changed the behavior of people in the culture, they're going to just tear it up. And you have just wasted money on some stupid program that's not going to work while damaging and destroying the morale on the police department for the people who are protecting this community. These people, I'm not sure what they're thinking. Or this is like social justice gone wrong. Like, they have to go down this path, even though they know that they're wrong at this point, and it's proven that the police officers are not just killing black people, because in 2019, not one unarmed black person was killed in Chicago by police officers in 2019, not one. And so they know that it's bull crap, but they have to fall in the toilet bowl and go down the drain for whatever reason. It's not going to work. Taking money from police, whether inconsequential or not, it kills the morale for the police department, and it's not going to change Pookie and Ray Ray out there thugging every day. It's not going to change that. So good luck to Minneapolis, and wait till that crime rate go up to 200%, and then we're going to say, we told you so.
Yeah. You know, you brought up an interesting thing, April. Thank you so much for that kind thing, especially with the comment on prayers. I don't know if you ever had a chance, Brandon. If not, go and look this up. There is a police transparency site for the city of Austin. This happened, and I got to be a part of some of the discussion in this with Chief Acevedo when he was chief at Austin before he went to Houston, and now he's on to Miami, if you know Art. But in there, they looked at all of the officer-involved shootings and use of force cases. And after all of the rhetoric, when they came back, it was 33% across the board, almost perfectly, white, Hispanic, or black. If you're causing crime, they were being involved in police use of force cases. I'm not saying those were improper uses of force. Those were just all the uses of force across the board. It wasn't selected. Now, there are great arguments on either side of the aisle in regard to that. But as one who has, and I'm going to ask you, I mean, have you ever fought for your life as a cop when you know someone's trying to get your gun? You're getting so tired. Even as a healthy, strong former football player, when you've been fighting for 2 or 3 minutes in a good full-blown brawl, that's exhausting. Have you been there? And can you blame an officer who has to then resort to a taser or to lethal force to stop someone that's trying to kill them?
Well, I was never in that position on patrol. I was just blessed to not have matchups that were competitive. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I could fight. I was very strong, former football player, and I used to knock people down, easy. And so I never had a fight for my life. But however, I did do it in the academy when we had the Red Man fight, because we had other police officers who were MMA fighters. One was a professional MMA fighter, Sergeant Tremblay. So, but I got my butt kicked. And so a minute and a half in, I'm done. I can't breathe. And I'm like, and people don't understand what that feels like, because I experienced it in the academy, and it was an eye-opening experience for me. And I was like, if this was real life, I'm dead. If you encounter that in the streets, your life is flashing before you. And anybody who's been in a fight, you look on TV and, Kung Fu fighters are doing this for 2 minutes. And like in real life, you are gassed at the first 30 seconds. If you go too hard, you're gassed. All adrenaline, you gassed. And so now I'm going to die here, or I'm going to do something, and dexterity in your hands, all these things leave you when life and death is present, and to a certain degree, unless you're adequately trained or you get extensive training, because we trained that on the SWAT team. But so people have no idea why these officers are making these decisions in such a clutch time period, or when you're fighting for your life and 2 or 3 minutes have gone by and you're like, I'm by myself, especially highway patrol, people that work in the county that don't have backup that's like right there. And these things are incredibly tough. I was fortunate enough because I was blessed with strength and size, and I worked out every day, that it just wasn't very competitive. When I would fight people, I would just beat them, and that was the end of it. Or we beat them, so yeah. So I have to say, but I do have a level of compassion for officers who get into these situations knowing that life and death is flashing before you, and you need to make a decision in like this, or you die.
Yeah. Well, God bless our police officers. Take a minute and tell me about why you wanted to write Beaten Black and Blue, being a black cop in America under siege. This is such a stunning title, and I've been listening to you talk about this for a couple of months now. I am just really excited about this. Tell people about this book and why it needed to come out today.
Well, this was a dream that I had, of writing this book a long time ago when I was a cop and I had no influence. I had two books in my mind that I feel like God pushed me to think about. And so when the opportunity presented itself, I said, you know what, I got to do Beaten Black and Blue. And the book is simply to give police officers a voice, literally and also, figuratively, because I wrote the book a little bit about my life story, how I grew up, how I became a police officer, the experiences that I had. And I interviewed 5 officers. Some were black and some were white. Interviewed 5 officers. And then one of them was Sean Payne, who is the reason why I became a police officer, and getting their perspective on what it means to be a police officer in today's world. How is it? I think if one guy's on a SWAT team, 2 other guys are in patrol as black officers. And then obviously Sean Payne, who's a career police officer, who was one of the most incredible people that I've ever met. And he's a part of a few nonprofits that support police and support police doing the right thing on patrol. And one of the programs is called the IF program, which is incredible. And so they literally speak in the book. And at the very end, we give solutions to the problems. And let me go back a little bit. One of the things that I want to focus on as well is police brutality and defunding the police. So we go through in the book and talk about, what does this mean by defunding the police? What will happen if you defund the police, and try to put a social worker in their place? And also I go into detail about police brutality, the ones that are justified that people mischaracterize, and ones that are not justified, and the difference. I want people to get a full perspective of the voice of police when I wrote this book, and I believe I was able to do that.
That is fantastic. Folks, you can pre-order the book right now. It will be out in just a couple of months. I think you had a couple of last-minute edits or something, didn't you, that kind of...
Yeah, I wanted to expand it. I added 100 more pages to the book because it was so much more. I had to add George Floyd in there. And I also added just a segment about these people who are saying police started from slave patrols, and it's completely a false statement. So I had to go back and make sure I add that to the book to give people at least a perspective so they can argue against that point.
Well, folks, I hope you'll go out and buy that. You can pre-order now on Amazon, so please go out and get that. Make sure that you're looking at Brandon's page or his YouTube channel and subscribing there. He needs the help. So let's get him a few more subscribers over there and push his numbers up. And Brandon, I'll tell you what, you got to come back. Will you come back?
Yeah, Mike, you got my word, man. I didn't know what kind of channel this was before, we communicated, and, I love what you guys are doing, an incredible conversation, and you can bet that I'll be back. If you have me, I'll be back.
Well, you certainly will. Now, I want to give you the final word, because I talk a lot about faith on the channel, and I want you just to share how important faith was to you as a cop, and then we'll call it a night.
Well, thanks, Mike. Faith, not only being a cop, but it was the most pivotal moment in my life. I got saved in 2008, and it changed everything. Race relations, me even being open to becoming a police officer. And while I was on patrol, I relied on God every single day. I used to wear the Archangel Michael, and a lady made it for me and laminated. I used to have it every day with my pocket Constitution in there. And it really helped me every day. And I honored God by what I did in patrol. I treated people with the love of God. I didn't count their negativity to them as a person. I separated them from their actions, and just loving on people. That was incredible for me. And I think that's how I was able to make such a difference, because I would love people. I would witness to people. If they brought it up, I will talk about Christ, and I will speak life into them, even if I didn't say the word Christ because of, the reasons why, but I would speak life to people that I dealt with, and it made an incredible difference. So, and also I was able to freely patrol and go all out with no reservation, because I knew that God was protecting me, and I knew that I was acting within my purpose. So I could go all out, hold nothing back, and just glorify God in everything that I did. But I really do believe that God is the key to our successes, no matter who you are, whether you're a police officer or not. Believing in God, having faith in God, being consistent, following the model of God will help you become the best version of yourself, which is the most important thing that we can have as a human race.
Amen. Thank you so much, Brandon. Love you. We're going to get you back. We'll continue to shoot back and forth notes on each other's channels. And to everyone out there, please go over to to Brandon's channel. And I'm saying it right, aren't I? The Officer Tatum.
Yep.
So just at the Officer Tatum, and make sure you're subscribing there and weighing in and giving Brandon your thoughts. And you know what? You don't have to agree with his belief system or anything else. One thing I've noticed, Brandon, is you do actually talk to people on your channel. So bless you for that, because we got lots of really cool personalities out there, and it's just so fun in this thing to listen to them. From all of us at Profiling Evil, bless you. Give your wife and your one boy or two boys?
I got two boys, 10-year-old, and I got a 3-month-old. So,
well, best to them and all of your team. And thanks again. And folks, from all of us, have a great night from Profiling Evil. Thanks for listening to the Profiling Evil podcast. If you enjoyed the show, don't forget to rate us and review us wherever you get your podcasts. And please, don't forget to go to our YouTube channel where you can watch some of the hundreds of videos we've created. Now, if you're looking for a great crime story, check out my new book, Deceived, an investigative memoir of the Zion Society cult. You can find it at profilingevil.com. While you're there, you can also sign up for our elite newsletter, the B.O.L.O. I'm Mike King, and thanks for listening.